Welcome to, or welcome back to, the Agatha May Detective Agency. I'm Agatha May. In part 1 of The Great Evangelist That Never Was, we learned of Reginald Wayne Miller's years in Florence, South Carolina, and of him building his little Gloryland empire, and the empire subsequently falling. And by falling, I mean Reggie knocking it down with his own actions. That video is linked in the description below. In this video, we explore his second little empire and its falling. These are the Cathedral years. I need to back up a bit first. I thought Reggie had left Gloryland in March of 1993, but he actually just changed the name of his church and college again and stayed in Florence until early June of that same year. So Gloryland became Cathedral Bible College, which doesn't sound nearly as fun as Gloryland. And it probably isn't even going to have horses or a mobile home park. Well, boo, Reg. On June 26, 1993, Reggie placed an ad announcing that Cathedral Bible College was moving, and also declaring the beginning of the Grand Strand Cathedral Church. In small letters under that it read, aka Cathedral Baptist Church. Now, you know you're doing some sketchy stuff if even your church has to have an alias. The ad also states that he will have a grant from Tabernacle Baptist Church of Florence to purchase and develop a campus between Myrtle Beach and Litchfield. Reggie, Tabernacle Baptist Church was the name of your church before you just changed the name, you twit. You gave a grant to yourself. The first church service for Grand Strand Cathedral Church, or Cathedral Baptist Church, was going to be July 11th, 1993, and according to Reginald, it was going to be historic. It was not historic. So Reggie began preaching in a storefront in Myrtle Beach. The Myrtle Beach Air Force Base had closed in March of 1993, and old Reg got wind that there might be some free land up for grabs. So he let the powers that be know he wanted some land. I guess the dream of having a campus between Myrtle Beach and Litchfield left as quickly as it arrived. Through 1993 and 94, Reginald continued holding church services in the storefront and was placing newspaper ads about how great his church and college were. He also had to make sure in a lot of the ads that he let everyone know that it was just a temporary location. I guess Reggie is just too good to preach in a storefront. Celebrity evangelists do not preach in a storefront. He was also still yelling about the Air Force land. In February of 1995, Reggie wrote a letter to the editor of the Sun News. Quote, "A recent article concerning the chapel at Myrtle Beach Air Force Base left the impression that there had not been any formal request for the chapel. In fact, the U.S. Department of Education, under the Education Act of 1949, requested the chapel and several other buildings for Cathedral Bible College. Since that request of 1993, the senior chaplain of the Air Force received a request from the Lieutenant Governor and numerous other officials to give the chapel to Cathedral Bible College. Also, Cathedral made an offer in 1994 to purchase or lease the chapel. The Air Force responded that it was going to offer the chapel at sealed bids. Following all these formal requests, Cathedral Bible College and Cathedral Baptist Church will offer a sealed bid for the chapel. It seems that with the golf course, recreational facilities, and other portions being given away, the chapel will have to bring in revenue to the Air Force as the religious community has to outbid each other for the facility." End quote. And it was signed Dr. R. Wayne Miller, President, Cathedral Bible College, Myrtle Beach. Now hang on to what he said about the U.S. Department of Education, because we're going to come back to that in a little bit. Also, I've noticed that Reggie likes to embellish his stories with adding vague quantifiers such as numerous other officials. So, Reg is mad that he has to play by the rules and bid on the base property, and he stays mad about it for a while. In June of that year, Reggie ran a Save the Chapel campaign because he had somehow won a bid on the property without actually having the money. I'm not sure how that worked, but on September 13th, 1995, Reggie purchased a little over 2 acres that included the chapel for $280,000 from the United States Air Force. The Air Force had authorized the city to create a Myrtle Beach Air Base Redevelopment Authority, and their job was to vote on who might be given some of the land, but the final decision was up to the Air Force. And in January of 1996, the Myrtle Beach Air Base Redevelopment Authority voted to give some base land to Reggie. He would be receiving the base theater and the bowling alley, which sat on about 2 to 3 acres of land, and it would be free as long as the Air Force approved it. Now, while waiting on the approval, Reggie was able to lease this land and the buildings at no cost. And there were also stipulations that if he was given the land, that improvements to the buildings would have to be made. So in between fighting the Redevelopment Authority, Reggie managed to move his church and college to the new property that he had purchased and started a school there that included grades 6 through 12 and eventually included kindergarten through 5th as well. Now, it seems that sometimes the school was named Grand Strand Christian Academy, but other times it was just Grand Strand Academy. I guess it was just whatever Reg wanted to call it that day. He's so whimsical. In April of 1996, Reggie went to the Redevelopment Authority and requested even more free land. He wanted an additional 22 acres that included the base exchange, 2 dormitories, and some land for a playground. He did not get it. In May of 1996, the Sun News in Myrtle Beach published an article with the headline, quote, "School is irate over Air Force Base land. Denied request for space has Bible College fuming." End quote. Now, I will admit that I did giggle when I saw the headline. The article starts with, quote, "The director of Cathedral Bible College vowed to fight a decision Wednesday that threatens to keep his small private college from growing at the closed Myrtle Beach Air Force Base." End quote. Now, why do I think that the only reason that Reginald phrased it this way was so that he would have an excuse as to why his college didn't grow, should it not, that he could just blame the Myrtle Beach Air Base Redevelopment Authority, because that seems sane. The article continues, quote, "This is not the end of it. I am angered and stunned," said Miller, who threatened earlier this month to file a lawsuit that would halt redevelopment of the base if he didn't get his land. The article goes on, starting with a quote by the Redevelopment Authority's executive director, Buddy Stiles. Quote, "Nobody ever promised him any land. The Department of Education does not have the authority to guarantee him getting the land." End quote. The article further explains that Reggie said that federal officials and former Governor Carroll Campbell led him to believe that he'd get the property. The authority offered to let him lease the land for 3 years, but Reg rejected their offer. He also rejected their offer to purchase the property. Now, Reggie was back at it the very next month, asking the Redevelopment Authority for the property again, and they denied his request again. I don't think Reginald Wayne Miller likes taking no for an answer. In an article dated June 19th of 1996, the Sun News reported that Reggie had supporters who were sending hundreds of letters and making hundreds of phone calls to the Redevelopment Authority and other community leaders about the Air Force Base issues. I like to imagine that a lot of the calls were probably just old Reg using different voices. Reggie had also sent a letter to the authority after his first denial. Quote, "We do not consider this matter closed. This property is the Lord's. It has been dedicated to him. Kings rise and fall, and so do authorities." End quote. You know who else falls? Blowhards who throw a fit when they don't get their way. Grow up, Reg. The article also quoted an authority member as saying, quote, "This is not a very nice group of people," end quote. Wayne claimed the redevelopment authority was breaking the law because it refused to give him the land. He said the Department of Education ordered the authority to give him the land. But once again, the Department of Education did not have the final say in who received the land. Now, you remember television station WPDE that ran the expose about Mac Daddy Miller trying to get frisky with students at his college? During this time, when Reg was fighting the redevelopment authority, WPDE was rebroadcasting the expose. They also ran a story about the Air Force Base land and used it as an opportunity to bring up the aforementioned alleged friskiness. So, Reginald "I Have Anger Issues" Miller wrote a letter to the television station. Quote, "Maybe sickness, loss of a loved one, something mortally painful, but it will come back to you. It will come back on the one who prompted your reporter to do a number on Wayne Miller." End quote. Okay, I think Reggie might be a little unhinged. This man is speaking about himself in third person now, and he wished pain and even death on people. I don't think Reginald is a very nice person. In fact, I think he's super not nice, and I think many other vague people agree with me. Have you seen the text that John Paul sent Mica? He was apologizing to her and saying that whenever somebody does something wrong to him, his first reaction is to hurt them. I guess we know where he learned it. In May of 1997, the Air Force had still not approved the land for Reggie. It seems they had concerns that the school didn't have any audited financial figures to prove they had money to renovate the buildings. Now, Reggie explained that he didn't have an accounting firm because he couldn't afford it. But he definitely had the money for the renovations. Also, because the schools weren't accredited, they would have to pay 20% of the value of the acreage that Reggie was requesting. Now, does Reggie ever listen to himself when he's spouting off? He doesn't have money for an accountant to perform an audit once a year, but he has money to renovate 2 buildings. Now, that is some kind of magic dollar math right there. In July of 1997, Reggie finally received his bonus land approval and was expected to wrap up the deal within 90 days. And he stated that even if they had to pay for the land, he could because he had $1.5 million in property at the former Gloryland that he could sell. Speaking of Gloryland, in 1999, Reggie still owned the property. And the property, along with his former church and college, was in the process of being sold. This sounds familiar, doesn't it? Well, in April of that year, the church went up in flames, just like his other church. Now, how unlucky can someone be to have 2 churches, both empty and in the process of being sold, burned to the ground? Well, isn't that just a coincidence? In July of 1999, Reggie changed the name of his school from Grand Strand Christian Academy to Cathedral Hall Academy, because, of course, he did. 1999 was also the year that the federal government approved Cathedral Bible College to accept foreign students traveling to the U.S. on education visas. In 2002, Susan had had enough of Reggie's crap and filed for divorce. In an affidavit, she alleged that she'd found Reggie in bed with a man who attended the college. She also described how he beat a 5 or 6-year-old John Paul so badly with a leather belt, he was left with bloody stripes on his legs. She also alleged that when JP was a teenager, he and Reggie had fights that would end with the police being called. Later, in John Paul's divorce from Allison alleged in an affidavit that John Paul told her that his struggles with infidelity and prostitutes was because he was SA'd by his father when he was a child. Susan did not mention S abuse in her affidavit. So let me stop here and say that my heart breaks for the little boy that was John Paul. No child deserves that. But as an adult, you have to take responsibility for your own actions. You don't get to do whatever you want and continue the cycle of abuse and then try to make an excuse that you only did it because you were abused. You have to stop the cycle of abused. Being abused is an explanation for your actions, but it's never an excuse. So Reggie continued with the college and school, and in 2003, somehow managed to raise $850,000 at a fundraiser to renovate the bowling alley, which was being used as Cathedral Hall Academy. Now, didn't he say back in 97 that he definitely had the money for the renovations? In a Sun News article about the fundraiser, Reggie was quoted as saying that 2003 had been a year of miracles. In February of 2006, wedding bells rang out across the land when Reginald Wayne Miller married Leslie Oakes. A few months later, he was arrested for lewdness and prostitution after exposing himself to a male undercover police officer at a beach bathhouse. Well, happy wedding, Leslie! Reggie was able to enter a pretrial intervention program, and the charge was eventually expunged. Of course, Reginald denied the allegations and said the officer actually came onto him first. You know, if this man ever decides to tell the truth, his mouth is going to be so surprised his lips are going to fall off. For a few years after his bathhouse debacle, Reggie managed to not have his name in the newspaper, at least not attached to anything horrible. Now, sometime between 2010 and 2011, it appears that Cathedral Hall Academy closed. In June of 2011, Reggie had been renting a building to Palmetto Academy of Learning and Success, or PALS, and he brought a lawsuit against them over the signing of and changes to a lease. PALS filed a counterclaim which stated that, quote, Dr. Reginald Wayne Miller wrote several letters falsely accusing the defendant and its agents and representatives, specifically Miss Amber Rogers and Miss Courtney Fancher, of fraudulent actions, misrepresentations, and misappropriation of funds, end quote. There were also letters sent to the Horry County School Board and other members of the public that accused school staff of stealing money, even though Reg had no proof of such. Reggie alleged that the school had committed fraud and breach of contract concerning the lease. However, the lawsuit also stated that Reg and another trustee signed the lease but didn't review the document closely before they signed it. So Reggie is suing a school over a lease that he didn't really even read, but he signed it anyway. Enough with the letter writing, Reggie. After a lot of back and forth between the two entities, the parties eventually agreed to dismiss the case. In October of 2012, there was an announcement that the main campus for Cathedral Bible College would be moving into the former Old Marion Hospital in Marion, South Carolina. The college had received a $644,000 grant from the Marion County Health Foundation to help finance the purchase of the building. I have no idea how Reggie managed to pull that one off. So on January 1st, 2013, Reggie sold his beloved Air Force land for $300,000 to Solid Rock Ministries, whose president/owner is none other than our least favorite narcissist, John Paul. In 2014, 8 international students from the college made allegations that Reggie was forcing them to work 30 to 56 hours a week at the college and at his home, and was only paying them $50 a week. The students alleged that the living conditions in the dorms were poor, sometimes going without hot water, heat, or air conditioning. They also alleged that the food they received was expired or that there wasn't enough. Another allegation was that the classes were a sham. The students stated that if they complained, they were threatened by Reggie with having their visas revoked or being turned over to immigration. Reggie was arrested on May 22nd of 2014 and went to jail. News of his arrest was in newspapers across the country. Reggie eventually pleaded guilty to federal charges of fraud in foreign labor contracting, visa fraud, and willful failure to pay minimum wage. On August 14th of 2015, his wife Leslie filed for divorce. 2 months later, Reggie was sentenced to time served and placed on 1 year of having to wear an ankle monitor and 3 years of supervision. Happy divorce, Reg! And like a rubber ball that is made from industrial extra strength, super duper strong, resilient, never ending rubber that never, ever, ever, ever quits, Reggie bounced back, and before long, he was once again operating a college. If nothing else, this man is chock full of tenacity and audacity. Now, here is one of the funniest and most pathetic things I've seen Reginald do, and he didn't mean to be funny. So after returning from being incarcerated, he figured out that if people searched for his name or the name of Cathedral Bible College online, his arrest would show up. So he thought he'd be slick and try to manipulate search engines to direct people to his missions website by using the same keywords that would show up on the news stories about his arrest. So here is what he wrote on the homepage of his missions website. Quote, Reginald Wayne Miller Missions, Cathedral Bible College, arrested by God's love, has devoted, not by forced labor or slave labor, and with international students, over 40 years to Bible colleges in the USA and bringing students from 53 nations. And also on the homepage of his website, quote, Reginald Wayne Miller, as the founder of Cathedral Bible College, and its students are sentenced by the Holy Spirit to serve, not through forced labor, but by being arrested by God's love. Nice try, Reg. I know you'll find this hard to believe, but in 2015, Reggie, once again, changed the name of his college. And that is where we will start our next and thankfully final installment of Reggie, What's His Name, Miller. As far as I know, Reginald Wayne Miller is not under current investigation, nor is he a subject of interest in any ongoing investigation. He is innocent until proven guilty. I will have the final installment of The Great Evangelist That Never Was soon. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment, as that will help my channel grow. Until next time, stay safe and be happy.